The title of my presentation is Making Information Accessible. And the courses that I took for this were computational models of cognition, probabilistic models of cognition, both of which I took last fall. And then this past semester, I took Foundations of American Cybercultures with Greg Niemeyer. And also, special shout out, they weren't part of the design thread, but to Technology for Behavior Change, Concepts in Computing with Data, and to Berkeley Innovation, which also had an impact on my understanding of this field. So I chose this topic because the terms, information age, internet era, data deluge, all of these terms get thrown out quite a bit, and they remind us that we live in an age where technology allows us to record and store more information and more types of information than at any point previously. So for most of us, the information, or our problems with information don't stem from having too little of it, but rather from not being able to make sense of it or not being able to relate one piece of information to another. And I think that this is because ultimately we get all of our information from different sources, from the internet or from textbooks or from lectures, but none of the sources of information are really direct uploads to your brain or things that are telling your brain to fire a certain way. And maybe someday that'll be the case, but for now it's not. But ultimately, of course, your brain is the only thing you have through which to understand information. And everything that flows in and out has to be mediated by your brain. And brains, and neurons specifically, like any other processing system, are better equipped to deal with certain types of data in certain formats than others. So I'm sure finals are coming up next week. This is probably a problem that a lot of us in this room can relate to. But there's a problem where perhaps all the information you need is technically in front of you. It's in a textbook. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it translates well into your brain when you read it. And you'll probably have to grapple with it for a little while, play with it, apply it, rephrase it maybe, until you get it into a format that makes sense to you and makes sense to your brain so that you can store it in that format and then hopefully call on it on a test or in a project to use it. And I'm sure a lot of us have also had the opposite problem, where you have something in your brain, but you need to find a format that makes sense so that it can be related to other people. So information accessibility, at least in the way that I'm talking about it here, is really more than just making the information available. It's not just that it's there, but that it's easy to find. There's a big difference between saying, here's all the information you need, it's in this one place, and also there's a big difference between that and saying, all the information you need is scattered somewhere on the internet or somewhere in this book, go fetch, have fun. Like that, those are very different. And more than that, it also means that the information is presented in a relatable way with context to help you understand it, and is clearly organized. So one example of what this could mean is that it's presented with a story. Some of you might be familiar with this. This is the Watson card task, and it was an experiment where subjects were told that each of these 4 cards, one side has a letter, the other side has a number. And they were told to tell the experimenter which ones they needed to flip in order to determine the validity of a logical statement. So, for instance, if there's a D on one side, there's a 5 on the other. And people, it turns out, are pretty bad at this when they're abstract concepts like Ds and 3s and 5s. But they're really good at it when you put it in the context of a story. So if you tell people there's a drink on one side and an age on the other, what cards do you need to turn over to tell if everyone who's drinking beer is 21 or older, they're great at it. So this context makes it much more relatable and much more concrete to everyone involved. Another similar example is the Dunker candle problem. And this has to do with the way that people frame the problem. So the idea is that people are asked how they can fix a candle to the wall without letting the wax drip onto the floor. And they're given a box of matches, a box of thumbtacks, and a candle, and a wall, obviously. And whether or not they can reach the correct solution, which is to nail the box to the wall and put the candle in the box, depends on whether they view the box as only a container for the nails or as a separate object. And that, of course, has to do with just how you frame the problem. Another way that you can make information much more relatable is through visualization. So a big portion of your brain is devoted to vision, and much more for vision than for any other sensory modality. So it makes a lot of sense that your brain would be good at processing visual information. And there's a really fantastic TED Talk from an artist named Chris Jordan that I was going to show you guys little clips of, because I think it is a great example.
closer, it starts looking like lots of pipes, like maybe a chemical plant or a refinery or maybe a hellish freeway interchange. And as you get all the way up close, you realize that it's actually made of lots and lots of plastic cups. And in fact, this is 1 million plastic cups, which is the number of plastic cups that are used on airline flights in the United States every 6 hours. We use 4 million cups a day on airline flights, and virtually none of them are reused or recycled. They just don't do that in that industry. Now that number is dwarfed by the number of paper cups we use every day. And that is 40 million cups a day for hot beverages, most of which is coffee. I couldn't fit 40 million cups on a canvas, but I was able to put 410,000. That's what 410,000 cups looks like. That's 15 minutes of our cup consumption. And if you could actually stack up that many cups in real life, that's the size it would be. And there's an hour's worth of our cups, and there's a day's worth of our cups. You can still see the little people way down there. That's as high as a 42-story building, and I put the Statue of Liberty in there as a scale reference.
So things like this make it much easier to process these big numbers, and seeing it in a visual way can make it much more impactful. There's just one more clip here towards the end that I think is really speaks to this point.
We make as consumers, as we try to build this view and try to educate ourselves about the enormity of our culture. The information that we have to work with is these gigantic numbers. Things in numbers in the millions, in the hundreds of millions, in the billions, and now in the trillions. Bush's new budget in the trillions. And these are numbers that our brain just doesn't have the ability to comprehend. We can't make meaning out of these enormous statistics. And so that's what I'm trying to do with my work, is to take these numbers, these statistics, from the raw language of data, and to translate them into a more universal visual language that can be felt. Because my belief is
Okay, so that basically speaks to the point I was trying to make about how visualization of data, even when it's the exact same data that's presented, if you put it in that format, it can be much more relatable and much more powerful. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about projects that I've worked on this semester that were guided by these sort of principles. So the first one I'm going to talk about is a project called Chronozoom, which Lauren and I have been working on through Berkeley Innovation. And we've also been working in collaboration with teams from Microsoft Research and from Moscow State University in Russia. And essentially, Chronozoom is a free interactive online tool that provides a big zoomable timeline of big history. So everything from the Big Bang to literally today. And you can zoom in and out to view different timescales. And if you click on different pieces of content, you can go and see more information about each piece. So what we did is we were tasked with improving the user experience for Chronozoom. And we decided to focus on two things: the home screen and providing points of entry, but also providing more navigation features. So this is a screenshot. And you can see that we've added advanced search features, so you can search by date, location, or concept, which didn't exist before. And we've also added this little thing up here at the top, which is you can drag and adjust the time scale that you're looking at with these little draggable sliders, just as another navigation feature. The advanced search is collapsible. And here you can see I actually searched for the history of the Chronozoom project itself, which was started back in 2008. And it zooms to just that time period. In terms of the home screen, we wanted to make this 3-column layout that has 3 different avenues through which you can discover content. So featured content, content that's popular right now, or things that are suggested based on the user's interests. And hopefully this can lead to something that the user is interested. I'm personally interested in the history of dinosaurs in film. And this is sort of the map that we envisioned, wherein we provided a lot of different paths through which people can reach relevant content, but all of them will eventually, you can move in and out through all these different avenues, but all of them will lead there. So this is another project that I worked on for Stat 133, another data visualization project, where we plotted points in Google Earth, and you can interact with this, spin it around, zoom in and out, and the color of the circles represents that country's infant mortality rate, and the size of the circle represents the population. And every time you click on an icon, it gives you information about that country. So this is a much more engaging and relatable way to view this information than just the list on CIA World Factbook that we got it from. This is another project I started working on this semester in Art 23AC, which is called Fine Print, and it's supposed to be an educational tool helping college students learn about the privacy policies and terms of service agreements that they all agreed to without reading when they signed up for social networking sites. So this is our very first prototype, but as you can see right now, there's information about Facebook, Google+, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Spotify. And the terms of service and privacy policies are broken down into 4 categories, which are content ownership, content privacy, personal privacy, and advertising. In that first column, there are key points all summarized, presented in plain language to make it more relatable. So you don't have to read, you don't have to be a lawyer, you don't have to read legal terms. Also, there's specific information about the settings that you can change in order to control this. And on the right, there are 3 hypothetical personas presented. And we've done this to provide specific examples of what you might choose to do if, depending on how you intend to use the site and what your personal concerns are about privacy and which issues you value more. And we wanted to make the site have these hypothetical personas instead of providing personal information about yourself. To just reduce the time that it takes to get to the key information. You don't have to create a login. You don't have to fill anything out. But also because we wanted people to be able to see perhaps things that they don't actually use themselves and be able to compare. So the last thing I'm going to talk about is I've been working at the Wikimedia Foundation in San Francisco for the last year. And what I've been doing there is I coded their annual editor surveys the last 2 years, and which is gathering user feedback and tracking changes in the demographics of users, of editors, and also trying to better understand ways that the foundation can support their needs. So this is a screenshot of the banner that led to the survey I made. And so in conclusion, what I've learned through this course thread, through the projects that I've worked on, the classes I took, is that making information accessible is more than just having the information there, but it's also about putting it in a format that's compatible with the way that people think and the way that the brain works. And this is really where human-centered design comes in, because it's not just about generating information, but about how you present it. And I've really enjoyed working on all of these projects, and I'm excited to keep working on them next semester. So thank you.